Hello again and welcome to He Knows. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're going to have a little fun and talk about the election to start off with. What a glorious, glorious week it was. We got to see the run up to the election. Everybody thought it was going to be such a close race. In the end, I'd say that Trump did pretty well. We had a landslide victory with 312 electoral votes. The Senate is changing over to Republican control, and the House of Representatives is more than likely going to be retained by the Republicans as well. So, what does this mean? It means that Trump's going to have a mandate, and it's also going to mean that we're going to have the opportunity to actually get some really good stuff done in this term, in this Trump term. Now, it wouldn't be complete if we didn't bring up a little bit of the aftermath of the election. The other side that is completely anti-Trump has been sort of losing their minds. We've had a lot of people shaving their heads. We've had a lot of people talking about wearing blue bracelets. And we've even had one or two talking about having their tubes tied so that they don't have children ever, anytime in the future. Now, why would anybody in their right mind decide to have their tubes tied simply because their candidate did not get elected? The issues at hand were never about what they think it was about. Everything that we're talking about and everything that the election was about is about the economy, about getting America back on the right track, and about getting America to be that great shining city on the hill again. So with a mandate, and well, before we continue, let's bring up video number 1 to show a little bit of our friend Steve Bannon and how he celebrated on election night.
For 1 second, I'd just like to give to Miles Guo and the team, New Federal State of China, take down the CCP. Take down the CCP. I gotta get Miles a song. Take down the CCP. Take down the CCP.
So why was Steve Bannon yelling, take down the CCP? Because that has been the fight for 7 years for our brother and friend Miles Guo. We've been dealing with the state of lawfare in this country for absolutely the last 4 years, and it does go back far beyond that. In the last 4 years, we've seen our friend Steve Bannon go to prison for a few months because he refused to respond to a congressional subpoena. Other people have refused to respond to congressional subpoena, and nothing ever came of it. Rahm Emanuel, I believe, of the Obama administration, is one of those that never did respond, yet he never ever was forced to go to prison for not responding. Why is that? Is he of the favored class? Is anybody that's on the right or even remotely connected to Trump considered the bad guy? It apparently is so. But it wasn't just Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon had probably the easiest of those times. We've got others. We've got Peter Navarro, and we've got Roger Stone, all of whom had the FBI raid their houses. These two gentlemen were taken at gunpoint by a corrupt FBI and then tried by a corrupt Department of Justice. This has got to stop. Simply being an ally of the Trump administration should not be justification for the FBI jackbooted thugs coming in and raiding your home and taking you away at gunpoint in front of your families. But it wasn't just them as well. It was also our friend Miles Guo. Miles Guo, I think it was about a year and a half ago, was raided by over 100 FBI agents at gunpoint at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They took him at gunpoint. And not only did they take him at gunpoint, they also burned his home. They burned his home. What were they trying to cover up? It is a tragedy that we're dealing with this stuff. So we've come to find out a few interesting things. Christopher Wray, who is currently the head of the FBI, was at one time Miles Guo's lawyer. And then he went to work for a law firm by the name of King and Spalding. At King and Spalding, he spent a lot of time working for the CCP. He was making $6.3 million a year. There are very, very few lawyers in America that make that kind of money a year. Now, him being appointed to the head of the FBI, after having been paid off by the CCP, it stands to reason why all of this took place. And we've also got a video of Miles himself talking about all of the injustices in the DOJ as well. Let's go ahead and cut over to that video right now.
绝对是个
真是
骗子。
太坏了。
这个普恒啊，在全球当中，你看他代理各种业务，现在他竟然过去中国的业务占了他一大半的业务。这个是已经绝对是助纣为虐，绝对是坑害中国人民。而且这个普恒这种丧心病狂啊，他觉得美国司法部的官员很多是来自于普恒，司法部的官员一退休就到普恒，他以为他就是第二个司法部啊。买奥美尼和普恒基本就认为自己我就是司法部，啊，就我们现在所有遭遇的迫害几乎都来自司法部，啊，我就不相信你美国司法部这几个黑官，你能把美国人民都全代表了？你代表全美国人民，美国人民都是傻子，美国的国会、美国的参议院、众议院就被你这么玩弄？你以为你是共产党啊？哇塞，这个普恒和毛埃米尼疯了！你都不知道他们现在口气有多大啊！他们想干的事你吓死你们绝无法想象的啊！未来你们会知道啊，在这回啊遇到郭文贵了，对不起了，你要好好的，这回我就跟那天我说的非常清楚，你有本事啊，你把我杀了，你把我抓了，你不我说咱像你就是像刘志华一样，是吧？而且他们这次咱们这个战友们全球的行动，他对咱战友，他真的是作死了，他完全是就是美国，咱也不是没朋友是吧？美国的国会的朋友看完这个以后，美国国会说他们真是找死了，美国是绝对不允许的，你完全是一种玩弄司法、操弄司法，就过度使用司法，这完全是针对爆料革命、新中国联邦灭共的一场政治报复。啊，这是一种政治猎杀，他们完全你完全没有想象到，就他们真的是共产党让他干啥，就让他干啥，让他造什么假他造什么假，啊！但是美国历史上，凡是这律师事务所，几乎到最后全部是被美国政府消灭。
So I agree with Miles. Not every American agrees with the way the DOJ has been conducting its business and the incestuous relationship between these law firms and the DOJ has to be stopped. A little history on Miles. Miles was a very, very, a very productive member of Chinese society. He is responsible for building Pangu Plaza, a beautiful hotel complex in Beijing that can be seen from the site of the Olympics. Now, before Miles had the opportunity to start construction on Pangu Plaza, the CCP in the area decided that they were going to try and steal this land from him. Miles is one of the only people in the world who has ever fought against the CCP in China and won, and that CCP official ended up going to jail. Now, this angered Wang Qishan. Wang Qishan is a past president, I think one or two before the current president, Xi Jinping. I can't remember exactly at the moment, and I apologize for that. But Wang Qishan was very, very well connected in all of the CCP underdoings. inside of Beijing and all throughout China. And so when Miles won, Wang Qishan made it his life's mission to bring Miles Guo down. And so that has been going on ever since, well, let's see, the 2008 Olympics, I believe, is what was in the Winter Olympics. It was in China. And so Pangu Plaza had been in place before that. So we're talking sometime around 2005, 6, 7, in that time frame. So it's been nearly 20 years that Wang Qishan has been after Miles in this way. So once Miles came over to America, it didn't stop, because one of the companies that Miles had taken out a loan from in China decided to try him over here in America. Now, what confuses me about this is I don't understand how a court case that should have never had any jurisdiction on anywhere on American soil actually landed and was able to be prosecuted or tried. And it just still doesn't make sense to me, because this case was about a contract or a loan where Miles took out a loan in order to build, I think it was probably Pangu Plaza or some other building structure that he was working on in China, and where he borrowed something like 30 million, I think it would have been American, the equivalent of American dollars. But it was a large number. And over the course of time, Miles paid off with the interest this loan. The loan was finished. He even paid it off early. Now, Wang Qishan has got his CCP fingers into every corporation, and he did his best to make sure that they worked to prosecute Miles over here. Not only did they work to prosecute him, they tried to infiltrate the government, the American government, at many points along the way. We just had a case with Pras Michel of the Fugees, where a lot of this information came out. We've got, government employees like George Hickenbotham who were implicated in bribery charges based on CCP trying to bribe him through people like Pras Michel, Joe Low. If you remember the Joe Low story, he is the individual that stole billions from Malaysia, then came over to America, even funded the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, bought a lot of gifts for people trying to purchase clout, and then was working to try and get some connections in the U.S. government so that they could talk to people in government and work with them to try and get Miles extradited back to China, because they wanted Miles taken out. That's all there was to it. So fast forward, and the H&A case with the loan that should have never been tried on American soil ended up going against Miles. He tried to claim bankruptcy, but then that brought in Paul Hastings. Paul Hastings and a despicable lawyer by the name of Luke Despens. All of these people working against the better interest of the United States, because they're working for the CCP in an attempt to take down an individual who is only trying to spread news and take down a tyrannical government. So Paul Hastings gets involved. And based on what we saw by the video that we just played with Miles, Paul Hastings is one of those law firms that has kind of like an open door back and forth between the Department of Justice and the law firm. So we end up dealing with a lot of lawfare. And the final straw is the case that is going on that has Miles behind bars right now, and that is the fraud case. In this case, this is the case where the FBI took 100 members, all at gunpoint, raided his home, took him in cuffs in front of everybody, and then lit his home on fire. What were they trying to cover up? They also took Yvette Wang in this same instance. And these two individuals who have done nothing but work tirelessly to work for the Chinese people to get them out from under the tyrannical control of the CCP. This is what they're all about. This is what they want, and this is why the CCP has tried to stop at nothing, even infiltrate the American government, the Department of Justice, and the FBI with Christopher Wray and all of those folks at the Department of Justice. Is it all of them? No, I don't believe it's all of them, but it is a select few at the top who have had the opportunity to get paid by the CCP using their BGY, and they fell for the G, the gold, in that case. And maybe some of them have things being held over their head with the other lenders as well. Hopefully time will find out for us. So this is what we're after. And hopefully with Trump now coming back into power, and in a perfect world, we would have the 4 years of Trump and hopefully even 8 years of J.D. Vance, and we'd be able to get this country on a track for justice, for prosperity, for not trying to bring down your opponent just because you don't like what they stand for. This is what we really have to combat. This is what we've been dealing with for the last 4 years. We can see in all of the cases that Trump has had to work against. Was he convicted of 34 felonies? He was, but does anybody actually know what those 34 felonies are? Was he convicted of inappropriate loans with banks? Did he try and overvalue Mar-a-Lago? They claim he did, and they gave him a $4.5 million fine, but was anything actually illegal? I don't think it was. I think they're overreaching because they don't like this guy. They are afraid that they're going to be taken out of power. They're afraid that the CCP isn't going to be able to have the control anymore. So they're throwing everything they can at him. Jack Smith, the special counsel that never ever should have been a special counsel, is starting to pack up his balls and go home. Well, Letitia James, she's already been challenged by one of the Trump lawyers that he hopes that she continues, because if she does continue, they're coming after her hard because this is traitorous activity. The case with the $450 million, what did we find out? The bank even wanted to testify for Trump because they found nothing wrong with the loan. Now, the judge tried to say that maybe Mar-a-Lago was only worth $15 to $17 million. I really don't think so. Mar-a-Lago's worth more along the lines of upwards of $200 million. Why? It's 20 acres in South Florida with waterfront on both sides, and it's an amazing spread. The buildings are gorgeous. Yeah, I think that this is judicial overreach in the worst degree. All of the cases in Georgia are starting to fall apart. The case in Florida with the documents is falling apart. Everything is finally coming to a conclusion, and they're pulling these cases back because they know there's no chance for success in the future. Hopefully, what happens with the DOJ is that we get somebody strong in there, somebody who has American values, somebody that values the people of the America and of the world, and doesn't think that prosecuting your enemies, your political enemies, is the way to go. Because that's exactly what we have right now. So we've got 2 months to get through. We've got to make it to January 20th in order to get the inauguration taken place and get Trump back in power. Over that time, there's talk of a lot of crazy things that they could do. Even though Harris lost, I've heard that they're trying to suggest that Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor should retire so that they can replace her with Harris, because they're worried that if they don't, they might get the opportunity, or Trump might get the opportunity to bring in another conservative justice. Now, frankly, I don't think that's a problem. We need to get the activists out of government. We need to get them out of politics, and we need to get rational, free-thinking, logic-using people into these positions. I think that's what Trump's going to do this time around. I think that in the first time around, he had way too many people giving him way too many ideas. And unfortunately, some of the bad people, like Christopher Wray, got put into positions of power that never should have been there. So thank you for joining me tonight. Hopefully you've got something out of this, and we will see you next week.